presentation is for a Datalore product. So, guys, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this meeting today. Uh, Ivan, thanks for the introduction. I'm Dalatole, I'm Growth Product Manager in the Datalore, and today Vladimir and I will show you a quick introduction of Datalore, and after that we can switch to the technical demonstration and to see it in action. And I think that you may have a question why we present two products today. I mean, two different products, to be honest. But let me uh, let me give you an answer why. So Qodana and Datalore enable collaboration and have analysis sharing features. So Datalore allows you to collaborate on Jupyter notebooks, providing an IntelliJ-like code editor for Jupyter notebook, while Qodana lets you share and understand the state of your code quality. So that's why we are here. And now I will try to share my screen. Just let me know if everything is okay and you see my screen. Um, I hope everything
Ano,
is
vidíme.
okay. Okay, okay, cool. So why Datalore? So over and over again, we see that data science teams need to evolve faster than their tooling. And we see that our existing and potential customers face at least two challenges from this list. Just take a look for a while and notify if you have some challenges with data science field like this. And we can group these challenges into three groups. It is faster insights, maintenance cost, and data team productivity. So we know exactly how handle these challenges successfully, and I can explain why exactly why and how we achieve this. So essentially, Datalore helps teams streamline insight delivery and enhances the productivity and efficiency of data and business teams. So what our team did a few years ago, we found the path that analysts and data scientists most often follow, which is connecting data, accelerating work on notebooks, and presenting results. So we've made a product that covers these three stages natively. And in addition, we added collaboration things to this flow, like in Google Docs. So with joint editing, sharing, and comments. So this is how Datalore came about. And I'd like to show you my favorite 5 key features that will suit you best, I believe, and level up your working life with data. First of all, in Datalore, you can link up with databases right from the interface. So you can explore the structure on the database and then retrieve your data using SQL cells. Um, Next thing, Datalore is Jupyter compatible and provides intelligent coding help for Python, Kotlin, Scala, and R, which is golden standard in the data field, I believe. So in Datalore, each notebook has its own area to work in. Third thing, one of my favorite, you can transform your notebooks into interactive data stories with just one click. So you can conceal code cells from viewers and share reports or presentations with your stakeholders. Next, you can collaborate on code in real time. So you can share notebooks using a link or by sending an email invitation, as well as you can create team projects in workspaces and distribute data with your team. And last but not least, companies seeking customization and data security can host Datalore in the cloud or on premises. So I'm talking about two versions of Datalore, Datalore Team and Datalore Enterprise. Datalore Team is a SaaS version, and we can show you the demo based on Datalore Team. And Datalore Enterprise, you can install on premise. So I think that that is basically it from my side. And I think it's time to dive deeper into how Datalore works and see Datalore in action. And Vladimir, over to you. I'm stop sharing my screen.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anatoly, for the introduction. Let me share my screen as well, and we can get started. Space. All right. So you can see it here. Okay. So hello, everyone again. I'm Vlad, a solutions engineer here at JetBrains, and I'll be happy to dive deeper and show you our Datalore collaborative data science platform. Since Datalore is a collaborative platform, there are certain things that are meant to be shared between multiple users within this platform. And these things are workspace storage, database connections, remote storage connections, and environment variables. And on top of that, there are workspaces unifying the above mentioned resources and the notebooks themselves together. Let's now go over each of these one by one to see how do they interact with each other. So first of all, the workspace files. They could be used for sharing any binary file between the multiple notebooks within the same workspace. And one of the use case I have in mind is the possibility of sharing the computational results between the multiple notebooks. So for example, once one notebook has completed something, the second one can carry on the work done without no delays by just picking up the file you've just shared and saved to that workspace storage. However, sometimes it might be the case where the built-in storage is not enough. So for that, we have a remote storage connections. And speaking of which, we do support Amazon S3 or any S3 compliant storage. So for that, you just need to enter the endpoint URL and all the credits you have to have access. And just so you know, all of the connections that are there are available transparently to the notebook runtime as a locally mounted file system. The Google Cloud Storage and the Samba shares are also available as well. The next thing we wanted to highlight are the databases and database connections. And speaking of which, we have a lot of database connections available. I would say the majority of the currently available databases on the market are available. So, for example, if you want to go with MySQL, it's there. If you would like to have, let's say, Vertica, it's also there. Even some rare things like SAP HANA, it's also there. So the only thing you need to do is to enter your credits and to save them within the Datalore server. Apart from that, one important thing to mention here is Datalore also does the database introspection. So for example, if you go to schemas, you can see here that there's something already present. And that's why, because Datalore has done the database introspection. So it already examined the way how this database is built. So it can suggest you something during the workflow. And yeah, I think that will no, the environment variables are the last thing, so they're last but not least. So they could be also used for controlling the runtime workflow. And for example, that might be extremely useful when you're using some shared library which relies on those variables. So that depends on the use case, but still, that's a nice opportunity to use these things if you have some kind of use cases there. Then, as Anatoly shared, so now we've talked about the notebooks, and now we're switching over to the notebooks themselves. As Anatoly shared previously with all of you, we have 4 different runtimes, which are Python, Kotlin, Scala, and R. And all of them do support 2 computational modes. And the first one is Jupyter mode, is the more classic mode, when the cell execution sequence is not being enforced, while the reactive mode, that's the one that we did on top of that classic mode. And its only sole purpose is to enforce the computational order. So for example, if you've modified this cell number 3, all of the cells after the cell number 3 will be automatically recalculated. And that is being done to ensure the data integrity and consistency. But enough words, let's go to and see it in action then. That was the report. That's a bit further. I apologize for that. And we're looking for that one. So that's how our notebook looks like. So on this screen, we do see 4 different cell types, and let's go over each of them one by one to see what they are, what do they do, and how do they work. The first one is the one we call the markdown cell. So its only sole purpose is to render some markdown. And while you might think that's not something you're expecting from the scientific notebook, because in fact it does not do any analysis, in reality, that's extremely useful thing to have within your reports later on. But we'll go to that in a few seconds. But next, let's go to the next one, which we call the interactive dropdown widget. And that's a nice thing to have a user-friendly way to define the runtime variables to be used later on within your computational computational code. So for example, here we are defining the membership variable, just a Python variable with the name of membership and some certain value. But the thing is, you can define, you can set up allowed values for that specific variable. So in fact, on the definition you're going to have is to have it via the UI. You might ask yourself, why do we need this? Why can't we do something like membership? And by the way, not the auto completion. That's the courtesy of our sister team of PyCharm, who did their amazing code completion intelligence functionality. And thanks for the synergy between the JetBrains products, we are able to reuse this thing within Datalore. But what can we do there? We can do something like this, and that would work as well. However, that won't be possible to be used within the reports because the reports are static and they are not meant to be modified by someone else outside of the notebook editing interface. But we'll go to that a bit further, but just memorize that we have a few widgets available to control the runtime variables. The next thing is a bit more interesting though. Those are SQL cells. The SQL cell is actually a way of executing the a battery SQL query against the Datalore connected database. So remember these database connections we have previously within the workspace configuration, and that's exactly where they're playing the role to actually be used, right? So here in the attached data, we have all of our database connections available within the workspace, and we can see that only few of them are attached. In fact, they are used within this workspace. But enough words. Let's see how it works. Let's trigger the database connection. Now, what has happened? It queried the database. It fetched the data frame from the database, and it saved this data frame, data frame to a data frame. Sorry, pun intended. In fact, that's a pandas data frame, which could be used later on within your own further computations. And moreover, it can also be queried by using the same syntax because Datalore supports querying data frames as a SQL source. In fact, we can see that we wrote a SQL query, we saved it to a pandas data frame, and now what we did, we queried it one more time, but not the database, but the data frame. And that could be helpful if you're altering the data frame somewhere in between. So for example, here we do nothing, it's just raw data frame being saved by that query. But shall you want to modify the query somehow, for example, or well, not the query. So we can use our interactive table filtering feature by going to the table, doing filtering, customer type equals something, and shall you use something else, you can modify this and get the filtered result. Even moreover, what you can do, you can do something like this. Let's apply the filter in this way. And now I have filtered data set. But what can you do as well? You can save it and have a rendered data frame. So for example, you can remove the previous data frame because you don't need this anymore. It was sales one, right? So we can do del sales one, and that's it. That's it. From now on, you can go and use this data frame further here, querying effectively the already filtered data frame. Now, so let me delete this because we don't need this anymore, and go a bit further. So apart from that, the SQL cells do have two interesting things. They do have a visualization built in. So I don't need to write any code to build a graph to see and to visualize all the data that you have within your data frame. And it also has a statistics tab, which does a very brief and quick statistical analysis based on, again, what you got from your database. Obviously, all of these databases are, all of these data are available by querying pandas or any kind of analysis tools. But again, why should you, if there's an option to do this Datalore out of the box? Apart from that, we do have obviously a code cell. So like you see here, we can do this in multiple ways. We can build a graph using our chart cell, or we can do this by executing the Python code, which will do the same thing. It will render the same graph. But apart from those, we do have multiple more cell types. We have a dropdown, like we've seen before. We have date pickers, sliders, text, checkbox, charts, even export to database. So for example, what you can do here, you can insert into the data frame and save it back to the regional database using this export to database cell. So the only thing you need to have is to have the target database connections or data frame. So you are selecting the data frame and running the cell, and it will append the data of this data frame to a table you've specified here. Pretty convenient, isn't it? Right. So, but what happens if you realize that you're running a big computation you don't have enough resources to? That's not a problem with Datalore, because you can easily switch your machine running currently right now in a few clicks. So there's a one CPU, well, two CPU machine, which is the smallest one that we have. But all right, if I want to run it on a multi-GPU machine, that's not a problem. I can just click it, and once I click OK, it will tear down everything that I have and restore everything back. But what if I don't? Okay, so that's the case we've covered, but we don't need to do this right now. But what we need to do and to think about is whether I can invite my colleagues to work with myself during this session. And the answer is yes, because Datalore is a collaborative data science platform. You can ask your colleagues, coworkers, whoever else, to join your session with Datalore and to work together. Like I see, I have Anatoly on this session right now, and while I'm talking and just telling you about the Datalore, Anatoly is modifying the cell on the fly, effectively having the same experience like you would done in, let's say, Google Docs. Yes, hi everyone. Hi Anatoly, I can see you loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm not really good with code, so I just decided to change order by total to order by average.
No worries. But even if you did something wrong, we do have a thing called history. And here we do keep track of every change that has been ever made to that specific notebook, because like you see, it has a long track of changes because we are using this notebook for different purposes internally. But yeah, even if you did something wrong, I can go there and click the restore. So I want to return to this notebook state. Yes, well, no, I don't not, because you did everything right this time. But keep in mind, I can return this to the ever state it has ever been in. Sorry. Well, and the last part for today is the reporting itself. So now the best one. So in fact, now imagine you did something with the notebook and you would like to share this with your stakeholders, sister team, or anyone else, and that's certainly possible with Datalore. So Datalore gives you an option to do this interactive canvas thing. So in fact, you can arrange and drag and drop the cells to the place you think they should be in. And once you do that and you're satisfied, so let it be something like this, I think it's fine. So I can do the update report. And once it's done, let's wait for a few seconds. It republished the report, updates all the things, and yes, open the report. So now, yeah, load the new version. Now we can see the latest version of the report. So that's the thing we've just rearranged in real time. And now what you can see, it's a static, right? So because it does not, it did not fetch the data in real time. But what you can do though, you can modify the report on the fly. So that's finally these widgets what are for. So you can see this markdown cell, which in fact does nothing, but it can be used for annotating what you do here in your report. Those are widgets which values could not be modified programmatically, but they could be modified manually, and that's their intention. So you're sharing this thing with someone else who's not so familiar with the programmatic way of things. They do modify the value. And now, as you can see, we've selected 2 values instead of 1, and we have a different graph over here. Because in fact, what we did, we modified the data source. If you go back to the internal source code and see, here's the membership thing, here's the end customer type in. So in fact, we've modified the SQL query, which now has returned a different data set. And everything here works the same way. Like if you do select product line for, like, let it be, I don't know, home lifestyle, report is being recalculated automatically on the fly right now. And now we can see the metric cell has changed its value as well, because it keeps track of every other change, every other state it has ever been in, and now it knows the value has increased, so it alerts about that. So, well, the product is a bit more complicated, though. We can talk about it in a few more hours, nonstop, but I think we are almost out of time. So I think that was it about Datalore from my side, and back over to Anatoly. Thanks everyone for attention.
Yeah, thank you, Vladimir. I think it's time to Q&A chapter. So if you have any questions, please welcome to our chat and write it. And of course, we can easily answer it if you know the answer, of course. And of course, you are very welcome to try Datalore. Just connect to Ivan, and I think that Ivan shared the details about how you can try Datalore.
Čiže kľudne sa môžete teraz pýtať chalanov, ak máte nejaké otázky, čo týka produktu Datalore.
Vladimir, I think it's a really good question. What should I do if my database is absent in Datalore? So you showed us that we have in Datalore a lot of databases, even rare databases, right? So what should we do if some database is absent in Datalore?
That's a really great question, and let me address that in a few seconds once I open my another Datalore window. So let me reshare back my screen. Yes. So unfortunately, that won't be possible to complete within the SaaS version of Datalore because it's managed and operated by JetBrains. But speaking about the enterprise deployments, it's possible because the enterprise deployments do support the custom JDBC connectors. That means that if your rare, like you say, or absent data source or database do have a JDBC compliant connector, this means that it could be uploaded to Datalore and used within this connection list. So we have, like I said, we have a lot of databases available, but if you don't have one there, you need to upload the custom driver, and that's possible. But thanks for the question. That was really interesting. Do we have more questions about Datalore today?
Yeah, one question from Ivan.
Yes, I have a question also.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, well, I wrote in the chat, what if I have several projects with 2 notebooks? One is mine, one is the other, my friend. Is it possible to use these in Datalore simultaneously?
Sure thing, yes. Like we've just shown you during the demo, you can work together not only within the same notebook, but within different notebooks as well. So it's only up to you how to organize that workflow. But in fact, Datalore do not have an upper limit of the simultaneous connection to users. So as long as your company is big enough to handle such amount of data being worked with at the same time, I think actually the biggest bottleneck here could be your database itself, if it's not big enough. But I don't suspect an issue so far about this. So the answer is yes, for sure, you can work with them together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you, Ivan. So, team, if you have any questions, just let us know. You can write it, and you can send it after this meeting. Up to you.
I see Mr. Adamet is typing something. Just give me a few seconds.
Do you also support the non-structured database? The question is from Boris. Well, the answer is yes, but not all of them. For example, you can connect to Azure Cosmos DB and query this because, in fact, it do support the SQL-based interface. But for the rest of them, like for example, Mongo, I don't think we have a built-in connection out of the box because like it's not structured, so it's a bit more harder to use the SQL query functionality together with this. However, if Mongo do have a GDBC compliant connector, I think it could be used with Datalore. All right, I think it's time to move on since.
Yes.
Or
Okay.
no,
I guess one more
someone's
question.
typing. Let's wait for them. Yeah.
Sure.
Is it possible to connect Datalore with databases that are deployed on-prem and are not exposed to public internet?
Well, that's an interesting question. So the answer is, if we are talking about, again, that's about the mode of deployment. If we are talking about the Datalore being deployed and operated by us as the same instance we've just looked at during the demo, datalore.jetbrains.com, then it might be problematic because obviously some kind of side-to-side VPNs has to be established and so on. But that's not going to be the case if Datalore Enterprise is used because you deploy it somewhere else within your premises, or at least in some controlled environment where you can set up the side-to-side tunnel or any other kind of, well, not proxying because databases do not support proxying, but some such kind of access established previously. I hope that answers the question, but just to be honest, this topic is a bit more complicated and it requires careful analysis of the specific use case. But general answer is yes, it's possible, but it requires some network planning to be or reconfiguration to be done in advance.
Thank you, Vladimir. I think that we are about timing, and this is basically it from our side. Thank you all for joining this meeting, and thank you, Vladimir, for your presentation.
Thanks for having me as a co-host. So over back to Kai.
All right. Go ahead, Kai.
Maybe quick intro.
Thanks very much for everyone for joining today, and thanks also to Ivan and his team for setting this up today. As mentioned at the very beginning, my name is Kai. I'm product specialist at Qodana. Bad news first, I'm not a developer, but I'm also not a full-fledged salesperson. But I'm in the developer tool space for over a decade now, so hopefully if you have any questions, fire away, and I should be able to help with most of them. But if there's something too detailed, I'm happy to take them offline and to get the answers that you require. That said, I will structure it in a similar way than my colleagues. So I will just show you a couple of slides to give you some context for Qodana, and then to walk you through the solution itself. And to start, I was actually trying to figure out a segue between Datalore and Qodana, but they're really, really different. So I just go with the Monty Python method of saying and now for something completely different. I will be fairly quick because you're all developers, so I'm fairly sure you're very familiar with static analysis, but only to make sure that we're all on the same page, I quickly want to explain what we understand and what we mean with that term. So static analysis is a method of evaluating and inspecting your code of an application without executing it. And why would you want to do that? That is to follow we all know that the shift left methodology, which basically just means in a nutshell, the sooner, the earlier in your development cycle you find an issue, the easier it is to fix it. And also it does not pose any risk. For example, if you were to find an issue later on once your software is live. Now, what is Qodana? So Qodana is our static analysis solution, or we actually call it a code quality solution, as it does a couple of things beside static analysis. Qodana is a fairly new tool, a fairly new tool in the JetBrains toolchain we released last year in July as a commercial product. And what we basically did is we took the linters, so the analysis engines that are already available in JetBrains IDEs, and made them available in headless mode to be run on your CI server. And we also added some additional functionality on top of it to really cover a whole lot of ground in terms of code quality. Qodana basically consists of 3 different components. So you can see here, one is an IDE plugin, and IntelliJ here is really only an example. It works basically with all JetBrains IDEs, with our relevant JetBrains IDEs, and for example, with Visual Studio Code as well. So plus you have a Qodana analyzer that lives on your CI server, and Qodana Cloud, which is our web-based user interface /reporting/admin tool. A typical workflow is that you develop away in your IDE, and then there are several ways to kick off a scan in Qodana, but let's just take as an example, you perform a commit. Then what that would do is the commit will also kick off a scan of your source code by Qodana on the CI server. And once that scan is finished, the analysis results are being transferred in SARIF format. SARIF is a standard format for static code analysis results to Qodana Cloud, so that, for example, if you're a manager or you want to have a high-level overview about the quality of your code, you can use Qodana Cloud to review these results. And what Qodana Cloud also does is it then pushes back these results into the IDE plugin, so that you do not necessarily need to leave your IDE to actually go and work with these results. Then some features. I'm not going into the details for all of them, but a couple. So those are 2 points where we are a little bit different from other static analysis tools. So we offer, additionally to the static analysis part, we also offer a license audit, which basically means that Qodana will show you if your dependency licenses are compliant with your project license. A really simple example is if you are, for example, developing a project according to an open source license, then obviously you must not use any dependencies with closed source or proprietary licenses. It's fairly complex. I wasn't actually really aware of that myself, to be honest, before I started working with Qodana. But considering that there are over 2,000 different license types out there, it would be really difficult to do this manually. Then what we also do is we have a vulnerability check. That would traditionally be called a software component analysis. And basically what that does is it will show you if your dependencies have any known vulnerabilities or not. And we do that in collaboration with Checkmarx. Checkmarx is the leader in that field, and we are using their library to provide you with these results. Then quick fix functionality. So that means Qodana does not only help you to find issues in your code, but you can also configure it in a way that it will automatically fix the less complex issues automatically for you. Quality gate, that's fairly standard, quite honestly, for a static analysis tool, but that basically just enables you to enforce that nobody is introducing any new issues into your code. Code coverage, you all know what that is, so we report on that one. And then 2 features specific to PHP, at least for now, which is quite cool. So one is a so-called version migration scenario. And what that basically does is it will show you if you were to upgrade your PHP version, what kind of issues would arise from doing that. Unfortunately, you would still need to go and fix most of these issues yourself, but it already gives you an insight into the effort that would be involved if you were to upgrade your PHP version, as that is quite notoriously difficult to estimate before you actually do that. And last but not least, taint analysis. So taint analysis or data flow analysis is a way to find more complex security-related issues, so for example, cross-site scripting or SQL injection and all that kind of stuff, that we currently have for PHP already implemented. But a little sneak peek, we are also going to release that fairly soon as EAP for Java as well. Then we quick what you can actually use it for. So here, and I'm not going through all of those, but maybe the main languages right now are Java, Kotlin, PHP, C#, .NET, and also coming fairly soon. And if you're interested, there's already an EAP version available, will be C and C++. All right, I will stop this here and have to switch off my camera, so I have to do this from a different monitor and go to the solution itself. So what you can see right now, this here is Qodana Cloud. And in Qodana Cloud, as mentioned, that's our web-based reporting/user interface. And Qodana Cloud comes with different levels of data aggregation. What that means is, for example, here, you can see the so-called organizational view. And in this organizational view, you can see all the different teams that are using Qodana within this organization. Then from here, you can go further down. I always have to be careful to pick the right one because that's actually our JetBrains Live organization. But from here, you can go into the individual teams. And for example, this here is then one team using Qodana, and those are the different projects that that team is using Qodana for. And here you can already see the first bits of information. So you can see the number of problems and the weighting by severity. And also in case that something is not configured properly, it will give you a warning here as well. And then one step further down from here, you can then obviously open the individual project, from where you can go and review the individual issues. So that is actually quite a nice example. So you can see the problems, the license audit, and here is an example of how code coverage is presented in Qodana. Going back to my demo organization, I will open up a Java project in this instance and walk you through the different bits of information that Qodana actually presents to you. Let's start on the top. So one very important point where a dedicated static analysis tool gives you more options compared to if you were just to use the onboard IDE static analysis is that it will also keep the scan and the analysis history. So here you can see the results for previous analysis runs of Qodana. And what's important to note here is that it does not only keep the number of problems and the issue types, but that it also keeps the full issue context as well. And that is very helpful, for example, if you're working with an older version of your code or of your project and something doesn't work and you want to review a potential issue that causes that, that enables Qodana history enables you to do just that. You see here it's fairly static, but you could see it in the previous project. Normally, depending on the number of problems, you would also see this graph go up or down. And what that does is it gives you a nice and easy, quick overview about if the quality of your project improves or decreases. A little further down, we have a couple of different tabs. So first you have the actual problem tab where you can review the analysis results of the issues that Qodana found from this particular run. And for static analysis, what you would typically do is, for example, if you scan a project for the first time, you would not try and fix all those issues straight away. But what you can do with Qodana, you can push all or subset of these issues for that run into the so-called baseline. And what that enables you to do is that Qodana will only show you new issues it found during subsequent analysis runs. That means, on one hand, it makes it much easier to actually see what's going on. And on the other hand, probably even more important, if you do that, it also enables you to set a quality gate. And what a quality gate does is you can set it up in a way that if Qodana finds any new issues, for example, in a subsequent run, then it will not allow this code to be merged into your main branch. And if you do that on a consistent basis, you will also chip away on the technical debt piece per piece that lives in your baseline from that point on. Let me push that back really quick though, otherwise I don't really have anything to show. Then I move on to the configuration profile. Configuration profile means which inspections you have set for this particular project. The inspections are mainly based on the inspections that you find in your IDEs, plus some additional inspections for the more complex analysis types. And you can set it either by using the UI, so you can either switch it on or off from here. But what that does is it manipulates a YAML file. So that means you can either use the UI, or you can directly configure these inspections in the YAML file as well, in case you know the inspection name. And what you would then do, you would download that YAML file, store it in the project root folder, and by doing that, you will enforce that everyone who's using Qodana to use the same kind of inspections. That's another difference compared to if you were to use static analysis only with your only the onboard static analysis with your IDE, because then you have no way of actually standardizing these inspection profiles. But if you use Qodana, you have, and that also means that you have comparable results between the different analysis runs. Because you can imagine if you have, let's say, 5 developers and every one of those 5 developers is using a different inspection profile, then it is really hard to figure out and to compare these results with each other. Moving on to the license audit. So this is what I meant with that you can, yeah, Patrick, you can. So there is a very short question to an answer. It's very complex, but yeah, you can do currently, you can currently define your own inspection types by using structured search, or you can write your own plugin, but we are also actually introducing a much easier way fairly soon, I think even with the next version, where you can write your own inspection types in Kotlin.
Okay, nice, thanks.
You're welcome. And by the way, if we are actually always happy for feedback. So for example, when it comes to custom inspections, what we do, we ask our customers what kind of inspections they would like to see. And if we say, let's say, a common theme that these 5 inspections are requested by a lot of people, then we are fairly likely to just go and add that ourselves to the standard as well. Cool, coming back to the license audit. So here's an example. This is the project license. That is something that you can configure. And here are all the licenses which are compliant or uncompliant for your dependencies. That also works for transitive dependencies. Probably nothing that is super interesting in your daily work, but regardless, really important to be compliant with, as if you're not compliant, it might open you up to all sorts of legal liabilities. And you can also download this list, for example, if you need to report this to one of your customers or to your legal department or to anyone who is interested in these results. Going back to the actual problems tab. One thing that's very important we find for a static analysis tool is that we want to make the analysis results as easily consumable as possible. You can imagine if you scan a project and you get 2,000 results, which for a big project could fairly easily be the case, then you really need to have some functionality to be able to zoom into the issues that are most valuable or that are most severe and require immediate attention. And we try to do it in two ways. So one is we present the issues in this ring UI. So you can see you can hover over these different types, and that enables you to really quickly find what you're looking for. Or if you have loads and loads of analysis results, you can also, for example, filter by severity level or by issue type or by whatever is most efficient in your case. Also, what is also dependent as issues are vulnerable dependencies. That is coming back to what I mentioned or what I meant with the SEA part of Qodana. So and here I can show you an example how it looks like. So for example, here you can see, okay, that is actually a prohibited license, so it reports that as well. And it also shows you, here's an example of a vulnerable dependency as well. And you can see down here, for example, some further information like the CVE number and so on. So that is, in case you're not using something like that already, is really valuable. For example, if you think back, and I'm sure we all remember that fondly, the Log4j issue that we had last year. So with Qodana, that would be something that you can find fairly easily. But it's also important to notice, by being presented as issue types, you can also set a quality gate basically against those ones. Now zooming in to the individual issues, I just open one up. This is the type of information that is getting transferred then from Qodana to Qodana Cloud. So you always see the line with the actual issues, and then depending on the issue type, around 1 to 2 lines above or below, so that you have the full context to know what's actually going on. Then you can also, it also gives you some more information, and that is, again, getting results is great, but we also want to help you to understand that issue and to go and fix that issue, and maybe for some developers to learn a little bit along the way in order to avoid making these mistakes again. And down here, you can also see an example of a quick fix that Qodana would apply if you had configured it that way. Regarding the quick fixes, also a little sneak peek. We are also going to bring these into the IDE plugin, so that basically in the IDE, you will get the results, and then Qodana will suggest the quick fix, and you just have to press a button, yes or no, to apply the quick fix or not. From here, you can then actually go and open that file in your, or open that issue in your IDE just by clicking the button. And then you will see the exact same results in the IDE plugin as well, so that you have everything that you need to go and fix, to understand and fix that issue in your IDE. Is the static analysis tool, I got the feedback from a lot of users, even not only with static analysis tools, but in general. Understandably, a developer doesn't really like to leave the IDE, as that is the main tool. And everything that takes you out of the IDE basically takes you out of your workflow and makes it, it causes a lot more friction to use these tools. And by having this kind of information directly in your IDE, it is fairly straightforward and very intuitive to work with those. We are obviously not the only static analysis provider with an IDE plugin, quite frankly. However, especially if you're already using JetBrains IDEs, for example, we are the only provider, obviously, that has an IDE plugin with the exact same look and feel that you used from all the other JetBrains tools as well. That again makes it, on one hand, very easy to go and start using the tool, to understand the tool, and to work with the tool in a fairly intuitive way. By the way, speaking about JetBrains IDEs, so if you're already using JetBrains IDEs for the relevant languages that we do cover, it's really easy if you want to go and give Qodana a trial, as if your IDE is fairly up to date, it's already basically part of the IDE. And if you want to just have a look on how it works with your project, you can run it locally as well. So that takes you literally 2 mouse clicks to go and do. But also integrating it into, but also using the cloud interface and integrating it in the CI is fairly straightforward and something that you can do mostly directly from within your IDE. Speaking about CI, just real quick, conscious of the time, I want to show you how that looks like on that end. This is here an example for GitHub Actions. So you can see Qodana is just set up here as an additional action. And it automatically starts in this case, for example, if I try to merge new code. And all that you need to do is you need to, oh, sorry, wrong key. You need to deploy a token that Qodana generates for you. And that's basically it. So that is something that is really straightforward to do. Or even better, as a JetBrains employee, I'm supposed to say in an ideal world, everyone would use just JetBrains tools. So obviously there's also very deep integration in TeamCity. So in TeamCity, you can also see the exact same information as you would see in Qodana Cloud as well. Great. Again, conscious of the time, that was kind of a speed run through Qodana. I hope that kind of gave you a first intro. But similar to what Anatoly and Vladimir said about Datalore, it would be really great. I think the best way would be just to take it for a test drive and to see how it behaves with your own data. So I see I missed a couple of questions in the chat. So coming to, can be Qodana used without connection to the cloud? Kind of. Would be the answer, at least for now. So you can use it without connection to the cloud. However, you would lose, on one hand, you would lose the Qodana cloud interface, obviously. And on the other hand, what Qodana cloud also does is it acts as a license server. And usually what we require is an SSH key to your repository. We are not doing anything with the code, but we need that to count the number of active contributors, as that is what our licensing is based on. But here again, there are ways around it. The good news, though, is we are pretty near towards releasing our self-hosted version. And with the self-hosted version, similar to SonarQube, you basically have everything in-house and you do not require a connection to the cloud. That kind of brings me to the next question about SonarQube. The answer here really would be, it depends on your use case and on your setup. So one functionality really is the integration into the IDEs. So that is currently, again, mentioned there, those are JetBrains IDEs plus Visual Studio Code, and very soon also Visual Studio. Because that's where SonarQube is lacking a little bit. Then SonarQube does also not provide you with the license audit and also not with the dependency check. But again, if Stanislav, if you want to, happy to set up a follow-up conversation, or we can also do that via email to give you a little bit, to learn a little bit more about what you're using SonarQube for and what we can probably do differently or better. But that said, SonarQube is a good tool. So I'm not going to say anything bad about them because they're quite good. But some things we are probably doing a little bit differently and a little bit better. Then how does pricing work? That is based on the number of active contributors. So that's another difference, by the way, Stanislav, the license model. SonarQube is based on the amount of lines of code. And let's take, for example, you have a big legacy application with 5 million lines of code, then you're usually not working with all those 5 million lines all the time, but you're only working with a subset. And the value you get from static analysis is where you actually go and add code or change code. However, for SonarCube, you would need to pay for the full 5 million anyway, because they're just there. With Qodana, we license by the number of active contributors, and what that basically simply means is you need to have a license for everyone who committed new code or changed code to your repositories within the last 3 months, because that is where we think that you get the most value out of Qodana. If, let's say, for example, your legal team wants to have access to Qodana Cloud just to check these license audit, then as they do not add new code to repository, they, for example, would not require a separate license to do that. That was a very long speech. I hope that makes sense.
I hope they didn't fall asleep. All right. I guess we don't have any further questions. And I would like to thank you guys for the presentations. It was very interesting. I hope the audience enjoyed, and if there is any questions, you can just shoot it straight to me, and I will be happy to forward it to the guys on the other side. Okay, and I guess the questions are over, and we can move to our last activity during this webinar, and that will be the raffle promised. So let me just share my screen. Okay, one more question. Vladimir, I guess that's for the Datalore.
From me.
Yes.
Looking at the Datalore pricing policy, do I understand it's correctly that computational SQL query execution itself is made on Datalore Cloud if the database hosted in the cloud? Does it mean data is first transferred from DB Cloud to Datalore Cloud? Yes, that's correct. So the SQL query execution, so the runtime itself runs on our cloud if the cloud version of Datalore is being used. If you require something else, like if you do have a strict compliance requirements that requires you to have this thing being executed within your own premises or closed circuits, that's something that we need to discuss further using Datalore Enterprise, because this thing allows you to set up everything and everywhere, but not connected to the JetBrains Cloud.
Okay.
And as a side note, if anyone else here have any further questions, feel free to reach to our partners so they can put us in touch and we can talk about this in more details.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, so we don't keep everyone too long. Do you see my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, this is our very simple raffle board where we add all the attendees during our webinar, and now we will choose 2 of them, which will be granted with our presents. So let the raffle start. Okay, and we have a first winner, Mr. Vanya. Okay, and second one. And excellent. Our second winner is Mr. Bankovic. Well, as I mentioned, the prices are not the USB sticks or t-shirts. The actual prices are a bottle of nice rum. One of them is Demon Share, and the second one is Don Papa. So the present will be delivered afterwards, naturally. Okay, and by saying that, I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar, and wish you a nice the rest of the week and happy. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
Bye-bye.
again
Thanks,
for
everyone.
joining this meeting.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See
Bye for
you.
now.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.